My little brother almost died in a car crash when he was 7. He survived without a scratch. After that, my mom treated him like glass. And treated me like steel. For 20 years, I carried the weight of a family that quietly decided I'd be fine even when I wasn't. This is how I finally dropped it. When we were kids, we were just two brothers. Not rivals, not enemies, just brothers. 2 years apart, close enough to play together, fight over toys, and race each other down the block without either of us remembering who won. Our parents loved us evenly. I never felt like one of us was favored. Birthdays were fair. Hugs were shared. Our mom used to say, "My boys." My heart split in two. I believed her. Until the accident. I was 9, Lucas was 7. They were driving home from his swim class, and a truck ran a red light. Their car flipped. He was unconscious. For hours, we didn't know if he'd wake up. I remember Dad clutching the hospital chair like it was the only thing keeping him standing. Mom didn't let go of his shoes, they were in her lap, still wet. Lucas made a full recovery. Miraculously. No long-term injuries, no scars. But something changed in her. Something subtle at first. She hovered more. Checked his temperature twice a day. Wouldn't let him sleep without a light on. At first, it made sense. Trauma. Fear. But it didn't fade. If anything, it calcified. And as Lucas got older, the attention hardened into obsession. He wasn't a bad kid, not then. But he learned fast. If he was sad, she'd cancel plans. If he was angry, she'd take his side. If I got hurt, she'd ask if I provoked him. I went from her heart to the one who should know better. I didn't get punished. I got responsibilities. I didn't get scolded. I got silence. Dad tried to balance it, but he worked late and gave up early. I started spending more time in my room. I read a lot. Drew maps of fake worlds. Pretended I was somewhere else. Lucas started acting out when we hit middle school. Not extreme, just lazy, loud, messy. But instead of correcting him, she smoothed over everything. He's just emotional. He's been through more than you understand. Let him be. One time, he broke our neighbor's garden light with a baseball. When the woman came to the door, Lucas cried on command. Our mom paid for it and said, "He's sensitive. Don't make a big deal." I was 12. He was 10. I realized that day that being good didn't get you anything in that house except the privilege of being ignored. I didn't start resenting Lucas right away. That part took years. At first, I just felt confused. I'd walk into a room and watch my mom's whole posture change, soft when talking to him, sharp when turning to me. I'd score high on a math test and get a nod. He'd fail his and get ice cream to cheer him up. Dad noticed it, I think, but his answer was always to keep things light. "Don't take it so personally, buddy," he'd say. "Your mom's just protective." I kept telling myself the same thing. She was scared. He almost died. She was overcompensating. But Lucas wasn't scared. Lucas learned. He figured out that if he made himself small and fragile when convenient, he'd be excused from everything else. He stopped doing homework. Mom wrote him notes to get out of gym. When he called me names, she told me not to escalate. When he stole money from Dad's wallet, she said, he probably thought it was his allowance. I started counting how often the word probably got used in that house. Probably tired. Probably confused. Probably going through something. By the time we were in high school, we were strangers who shared a last name. I kept my head down, took advanced classes, worked weekends at a gas station. Lucas coasted. Showed up late, skipped classes, came home reeking of smoke. Mom asked if he was okay. Dad asked if he was using. Lucas said nothing. I knew. I'd seen the texts on his phone when he left it unlocked. I'd overheard his friends talking about pills and cash. But I said nothing too. I was tired of trying to protect people who never asked how I was doing. I started sleeping with my door locked. Not because I thought he'd hurt me, but because I didn't want to know what time he got home. I didn't want to know who he brought over. The more I distanced myself, the more she pulled closer to him. One night, I came home early from work and found him passed out on the couch, drunk and shirtless, pizza box on the floor, beer can tipped sideways. My mom sat next to him stroking his hair like he was 6. She looked up at me and said, "He's going through something." I stood there, in my gas station polo, still smelling like oil and burnt coffee, and realized, whatever he was going through, I was never allowed to have my own version of it. The worst part? I missed him. Or at least, I missed the kid I thought he used to be. We used to build Lego spaceships and race bikes down the driveway. Somewhere in all that noise and chaos, I think there was a version of him that could have been my best friend. But that version was gone. And no one in our house wanted to admit it. I moved out the summer after graduation. Lucas didn't. I got into a solid college an hour and a half away, packed up my beat-up Civic with everything I owned, and drove off like the world might finally start to make sense. Lucas stayed home. At that point, he'd barely finished high school, if you could even call it that. I think they passed him just to get rid of him. He didn't apply to anything. Didn't work. Didn't volunteer. He slept in, smoked in the garage, played video games until sunrise, and somehow always had money for fast food. I didn't ask where it came from. I didn't want to know. College felt like air after drowning for years. It wasn't easy, I was broke, tired, and constantly worried I'd lose my scholarship, but I was free. No yelling from the other room. No stepping around broken glass. No pretending that love was a scarce resource I had to earn. I met my wife in my second year. She was working in the student library, studying late like me, quiet and kind and not interested in anyone's drama. We clicked slowly. She never asked about my family, but when she did, I think she already knew the answer. When I told her how Lucas was, how mom made excuses, how dad always looked the other way, she didn't say I'm sorry. She just said, "That sounds exhausting." And it was. But I'd gotten used to exhaustion. I graduated on time, landed a job 2 weeks later, and we got married the following spring. Nothing fancy. Just a courthouse, a rented suit, and a couple of people who really cared. My parents were there. Lucas showed up late and stoned. He hugged me too hard and whispered, "You really made it, huh?" I didn't know if it was admiration or bitterness. Maybe both. By 25, I had a job, a wife, and a baby on the way. We got a mortgage on a fixer-upper 2 towns over. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every cracked tile and overdue bill felt like proof that I'd built something real. I didn't talk to Lucas much. Our parents would give me the occasional update, still not working, still borrowing money, still trying to get back on his feet. At some point I stopped asking what that even meant. The truth was, Lucas didn't want a life. He wanted a shortcut. And deep down, I knew that one day, he'd come knocking on my door, not to visit, but to take. The first time Lucas asked me for money, he didn't even try to soften it. No "how are you," no "can we talk." Just a text that said, "Yo. You got $5 grand?" I stared at it for a long time. Thought maybe it was a joke. Then the next message came, "I'll pay you back. It's urgent. Please don't be a dick about this." I didn't answer. Not right away. I showed the text to my wife. She gave me that look, the one that says, "You already know the answer, you just want me to say it for you." So I didn't respond that night. The next day, he called. "You see my message?" he asked, all casual, like this was something we did. Like I was his ATM. I asked what it was for. He hesitated, then said, "Just some debt. It's not a big deal. I just need to square something up. I'll pay you back in like a month." I said no. Not because I couldn't afford it, I could have scraped it together if I really wanted, but because I knew it would never be the last time. Lucas didn't want help. He wanted rescue. He got pissed immediately. Said I was selfish, said I thought I was better than him now. "You got your little house and your little wife and your little life. You forgot where you came from." That line stuck with me. Because I hadn't forgotten. I just didn't want to go back. A few days later, my mom called. Her tone was soft. Almost rehearsed. She said Lucas was in a bad place. That he was under pressure. That he didn't know who else to turn to. I told her I'd already said no. She sighed like I'd disappointed her personally. He's your brother, she said. You're supposed to help each other. I've been helping him since I was 12, I said. When does it stop? There was a long silence. Then she said, I didn't raise you to be so cold. And something in me cracked. No, I said. You raised me to absorb damage. To keep quiet. To make space for him no matter what it cost me. And I'm done. I hung up. My phone rang 6 times that night. I didn't pick up. A week later, I got a call from my dad. Not my mom. That was rare. He sounded tired. Not just physically, like something had finally broken loose and he didn't know how to hold it in anymore. Your mother's upset, he said. I waited. She's been crying all week. She says you threatened Lucas. That caught me off guard. I hadn't spoken to Lucas since the call. But apparently he told her I said I'd beat the shit out of him if he ever called me again. Which wasn't true. What I actually said was, if you ever show up at my house trying to drag me into your mess, I won't be polite. But I guess that didn't sound dramatic enough. I told my dad the truth. He sighed again. You know how your brother is. You know how your mother gets. Yeah, I said. I do. Then he added something that stayed with me, she's scared. He's pulling money from her. We can't stop it. He knows how to get to her. That was the first honest thing I'd heard in months. I asked how much. Dad didn't answer. I said, I'm coming over. He said, that might make it worse. I said, it already is worse. I got in the car and drove back to the house I hadn't lived in for almost a decade. It looked smaller. Tired. Like it had been holding its breath too long. My mom opened the door. Her face was pale and her mouth tight. He's not here, she said, before I could speak. I stepped inside anyway. Same photos on the wall. Same smell of lavender and something burned. I sat in the living room, waited. She didn't sit. She just stood near the counter, arms crossed, like she was bracing for a fight. I told her I knew Lucas had been pressuring her for money. That I knew it wasn't the first time. She denied it. Then admitted it. Then justified it. He's scared, she said. He's not like you. He's fragile. I said, he's manipulative. She flinched. He's your brother. Not by choice, I said. Not anymore. She turned away. I asked where Dad was. She said he'd gone to pick Lucas up. That he thought maybe if we all sat down, we could talk it out. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was insane. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and told her, if he walks in here thinking this is another performance where he cries and you forgive him, I'm going to say everything I've ever held back. And I don't care who hears it. She didn't stop me. She just said, I don't know what happened to you. And I said, you do. You just don't like what it says about you. Lucas wasn't with Dad when he got back. Just him. Alone. I could tell by the look on his face that whatever conversation they'd had hadn't gone well. He walked through the door, gave me a half nod, and dropped his keys on the table like they weighed 100 pounds. He's not coming, he said. He said you'd just make a scene. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Mom sat down across from us, but she didn't look at either of us. Just stared at a crack in the tile like it might open up and swallow the whole conversation. Dad rubbed his face, then finally said, I know we've messed up. I know we let things get to this point. That surprised me. I hadn't expected him to admit it. He looked older than he had a year ago. Smaller, like something inside him had deflated. He's not a kid anymore, he said. And we can't keep pretending he is. Mom tensed, but didn't speak. I don't know how to fix this, he added. But I'm done cleaning up his messes. For a long time, none of us spoke. The room was so quiet I could hear the old wall clock ticking like it was trying to fill the space. Then I said, I'm not asking you to pick sides. I just want it to stop. My dad nodded. Me too. My mom finally looked up. Her eyes were glassy, and her voice cracked when she said, I just wanted both of you to be okay. We're not, I said. We haven't been for a long time. I stood up. If he ever needs help, real help, not another bailout, I'll think about it. But I'm not saving him from himself anymore. My dad said, that's fair. My mom looked like she wanted to say more, but didn't. I walked out without hugging either of them. On the way home, I played music loud. Not to distract myself, but because silence felt too honest. That night, I got a text from Lucas. Just 3 words, you picked them. I didn't reply. Lucas showed up 2 days later. Drunk, or high, or both. He banged on our parents' front door just before midnight, yelling loud enough to wake the neighbors. I wasn't there, but my dad called me the next morning, voice shaking. He trashed the living room, he said. Broke a lamp. Screamed at your mother. Said we were choosing you over him. He paused. I told him to leave. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the phone in both hands like it might explode. You told him what? I told him to get out, he repeated. I said I'm done. That if he wants to ruin his life, he can do it somewhere else. I didn't know what to say. For years, that man tiptoed around Lucas like he was a bomb with a loose pin. And now, something had snapped. How's Mom? I asked. Shaken, he said. But she didn't stop me. That's something, right? I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. That afternoon, I drove over. The place was a mess, cushions on the floor, coffee table flipped, glass in the carpet. My mom was sweeping in silence. She didn't look up when I walked in. Where is he now? I asked. We don't know, she said. He turned his phone off. I sat on the couch frame, no cushions left, and waited. After a while, she said, I didn't want this. Neither did I said. But he needs a bottom. She nodded slowly. Do you think he's hit it? That's not up to us, I said. That's up to him. She looked like she might cry, but didn't. Instead, she asked, do you hate me? I didn't answer right away. Then I said, no. But I resented you for a long time. And I think you let him become someone he didn't have to be. I know, she whispered. It wasn't much. But it was more than I expected. That night, she called a family counselor. The next day, she and Dad told Lucas they'd pay for rehab, but only if he agreed to stay for the full program and didn't contact anyone until he completed it. He didn't respond. Not at first. But 3 days later, he showed up, hungover, quiet, exhausted. And said, okay. Lucas left for treatment the following week. It wasn't dramatic. No hugs, no tears, no movie scene with a suitcase at the door. He showed up to my parents' house in sweatpants and a hoodie, eyes hollow, face pale, and said, let's just go. I didn't visit. I didn't write. I didn't check the center's website or ask for updates. Not because I didn't care, but because caring had always been the trap. The more I tried to save him, the more I sank. I needed to see who he became when I wasn't around to catch the pieces. My parents checked in once a week. They said he was doing the work. Not just showing up, but really trying. He wrote in group. He started exercising. He apologized to a counselor without being told to. Mom sounded hopeful. Dad sounded cautious. I just listened. The silence between us, the one that used to buzz with resentment and fear, had shifted. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't war either. It was space. Clean, hard-earned space. 8 weeks in, I got a message from Lucas. Just 5 words, I'm trying. I'm sorry. I sat on the back steps of my house and stared at the screen. I didn't cry. I didn't reply right away. I just read it again and again until the meaning changed from shock to something softer. Then I wrote, "Do the work. Not for me. For you." He responded with a single heart. Nothing else. And that, somehow, was enough. A few days later, Mom called. Said he asked about me. Said he told the therapist that my brother was the one who finally made me stop lying. She said he's scared to come home, not because of them, but because of me. That hit harder than I expected. I told her, he doesn't need to be afraid. But I won't lie to him either. She paused, then said, "That's fair." And it was. These days, we don't talk often. Sometimes Dad sends me updates. Sometimes I ask. Lucas is still in treatment. I think he's going to finish. I don't know what comes after that. Maybe nothing. Maybe something real. But I've stopped trying to write the ending ahead of time. All I know is this: we were a family that broke and never admitted it. Now, we're a family that's broken and knows it. And that's a start. Not peace. Not healing. But truth. And that's enough for me. Subscribe, hit the like button, and explore more fascinating stories.